Right, first thing I'm going to cover is pot size. So we've got a dahlia here, and this pot would be too small. I think this pot here, which is a 2 litre, would be about perfect. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's fine. So this is a 5 litre, and lots of people have been asking me about if they wanted to pot their dahlia in a pot and leave it in a pot for the whole season, then you would want at least a 10 litre. But what I would recommend you do is, rather than starting it off in a 10 litre, which means there's a temptation to overwater it, I would start it off in a 2 litre, and then as it fills that pot, makes a nice root ball, you move it up to, if you've got it, to a 5 litre, and then as it fills that, you move it up again to the 10 litre. Every time you do that, you refresh the compost, so the compost stays fresh and doesn't go stale. I'm doing al fresco, an al fresco virtual workshop today. Okay, so this is our dahlia tuber. Now, if you turn it over, you can see that some of the tubers are not really attached anymore. So if these, can you see that's not attached at all? It's just holding on by its threads. If it's getting in the way of fitting in the pot, just snip it off, because it won't do it any harm whatsoever. I think there's a bigger one here. So that is really not really attached. If I twiddle it, it's just going to come away. So if it's getting in the way of the pot, just take it off, because the eye, let me find it, there, that's the good bit, that's the bit you need. There we go. So I've cleaned that up a bit. Just discard the tubers you cut off, because they don't have an eye. This is an eye here, can you see they're waking up now? They don't have an eye, so they will grow roots and fool you if you plant them, but because there's no eye, there's nowhere for it to shoot. And now this fits a lot more neatly in this 2 litre pot. So what I'm going to do next is put a cushion of compost in the bottom for the dahlia to sit comfortably on. I thought I'd do this pot side by side so you can compare and see how deep I put that compost in. So there we go. So it's got a nice, if you filled the compost pot to the top, you can see that I can put my hand straight across the top, none of it's sticking out. Now, if you're just planting them to grow, then you can fill this to this top line here with compost, and what that does is, by not filling it to the brim, that gives you a space to be able to water it without the water pouring over the side, taking the compost with it. If you had one of our tubers, you'll also find there was a label in the bag, so add that to the pot so you know which one it is. Now, if you're potting up your own dahlias, if they're a bit bigger and you want to take some cuttings, I'll show you how to do that now. Now, with our existing dahlias, we want to restrict it to less than 5 shoots, depending on the size of the tuber, 3 to 5 shoots, because otherwise the dahlia is having to do too much work and the flowers won't have strong enough stems to stand up. So we end up taking some stems out, and what you can do when you do that is to take some cuttings. So this dahlia here has been planted, but can you see how much lower the compost is? Because what I'm doing is I'm leaving the shoots proud of the compost, so I can come along with my scalpel and take some cuttings of these. Now, we started these off quite a while ago because we were scheduled to have dahlia workshops here, and it would have been a pretty rubbish workshop if we weren't able to do demonstrations. But what it does mean is that I will be able to show you how to do cuttings in the coming week. I'm just going in so you can see. So we've got 7 shoots on this dahlia, so I can take at least 2. I'll probably take about 3 shoots off of that. That leaves me with a really strong dahlia to plant, and then potentially some free plants to either bulk up your supply or to share with neighbours. So I have another tuber here, and you can see how much bigger this one is. So this is a 5 litre pot, and can you see that does not fit? So you don't want to shove it in, like squishing it into 2 small shoes. What I will do is I will move to a 10 litre pot, and if you don't have enough compost, or you want to take cuttings, you should get quite a few shoots off of this dahlia, then you don't need to fill the compost pot, you don't have to fill the pot of compost up to the brim. You can just plant it so that it's deep enough that the tuber can get all the water and nutrients it needs to get shooting. Then what will happen is, once I've taken these cuttings off, if you leave it proud, that makes these stems very vulnerable to snapping, very vulnerable. So as soon as I've taken my cuttings, I will then fill the compost up to the top, and by that time the tuber will be needing that bit of extra nutrient power coming from the fresh compost.